Today, we still have some winners to announce after the session, so not quite final, but the final speaker joining us on addressing the new collective with climate imagination. We've talked about a lot of practical advice today, and I'm excited to have Nivi join us on stage now. Nivi Achanta, she's the founder of Soapbox project, an amazing resource if you want to translate your intention into actual climate action. Really excited to have you join us, Nivi, and I'll hand over to you to share a bit more about yourself and get started with the session.
Amazing. Thank you everyone for joining. Thank you for that wonderful introduction. Your first imagination exercise is to pretend that my background isn't super messy. So that's where you can start practicing. Before we go any further, I'm going to ask you to get a pencil and a paper. It doesn't have to be anything fancy. I'm sure if you're like me, you're sitting at a cluttered or hopefully cleaner desk. I have like this tiny random notebook and a pen. This session might be a little different from some of the ones that you've been to. I'm going to try to make it as interactive as possible because I want you to really get something tangible from this. Let me also see if I can hide this annoying toolbar thing. I didn't realize that was going to show up. That's fine. Okay, just and you can imagine that you're not seeing that. So find a little paper and pencil. Before we go any further, I just want you to follow this little GIF 3 times so that we can all ground in the same place. I know you've had a really busy day. You've been doing this summit. You've been doing all your other stuff. So just join me in just breathing in and out. We'll do it 2 more times. Okay, I'm a really fast talker and I can get really carried away with what we're doing. So I always like to begin each event with being fully present so that we can just be here in the work that we're doing. So I promise I will properly introduce myself in a second, but first I just want to tell you what to expect over the rest of today's 20 minutes that we have together. So first of all, if you have any comments or questions, you can definitely put them in the chat. I can see them as they come in, and Jordan and the team will resurface them. So the first thing that we're going to do is talk about what climate imagination is, right? Like that was part of the session topic, but it might be a term that people are unfamiliar with. I know like 2 years ago, I had no idea what that meant. And now it's a key part of my life. So we're going to go over those imagination exercises. Don't worry, it's nothing scary. That's why I asked you to get your pen and paper. It'll only take 60 seconds. Then we're going to go over the framework for climate imagination. My goal, since a lot of you are entrepreneurs, operators, thinking about going into climate work, already in climate work, like really, this is the future that we're building. And so I want to go over a framework that you can take back into your work, into your job, into your side project, whatever you're working on. And then the third thing that we'll go over is how to apply it. And I'll talk about some real world examples, both from generally the world that we live in and also how I have applied it at the company that I run, Soapbox Project. So again, I owe you a better intro, but we're just going to go ahead and get started with climate imagination exercises. So the first thing that I want us all to do is just ground ourselves a little. In the chat, I want you to type in one word on how you feel about the climate crisis. That can be any word, whatever comes to mind when you're thinking of climate change, when you're thinking of the climate crisis. How do you feel? I know there's a little bit of a delay between the live stream and the chat, so I'm just going to wait for like 15 seconds. Jordan, if you see any comments come in that you want to spotlight, go ahead and do that. And when I introduce myself, I'll also share how this shows up in my own life. I'm seeing angry. That's a big one. Overwhelmed. Frustration. Potential. I love that. heavy, determined. Oh, I see another point for overwhelming. Yep, I see another overwhelmed in there. Keep them coming as the session goes on. If you want to share more about yourself, about your own life, about your feelings, like go ahead and drop them in the chat. I'm going to go on to the next slide, but I really appreciate what everyone's contributing. And I will say that if there was a word cloud for feelings about the climate crisis, I think the biggest two big words would be like overwhelmed and frustrated. And I think that's really intense, but that also shows us how much potential that we have to work with. So I know Sonia said in the chat, potential. So the second exercise, and then I won't subject you to any more of this interaction, but this part is really important. Okay, so I want you to get out the pen, paper, whatever tool that you have. If you're like drawing on an iPad, that's totally fine. I'm going to start my little cell phone timer for 60 seconds, and you are going to draw what matters to you. So you can interpret this prompt however you want. Something that I find helpful when I go through this exercise is to think about like grounding myself in my own life where I live currently. So I am living in Seattle. There's a park near my house that I really love going to. I'm not going to give away too much right now, but we're going to take 60 seconds starting as soon as I get my phone timer up. And okay, we're going to start now. Just draw what matters to you. Interpret that prompt however you feel like. And then after 60 seconds, we're going to come back and share in the chat some of the themes that came up. So I'm going to start it now, and I'm going to join you two in this exercise. So let's give it a second. We have about 30 seconds left. You don't need to be an artist. I'll show you my drawing at the end of this, and you will hopefully feel better about your own artistic skills. All right, 5 seconds left. Okay, so this exercise, I'll tell you a little bit about why we're doing it. But I want us to share whatever you're comfortable sharing in the chat. I know we can't all see each other on video, but you can see my awesome, let's see if this webcam thing works. So I'm going to just show you this for a second and then tell you about my silly but really important drawing. So what I drew, I mentioned I live in Seattle. So one thing that matters to me that I realized has been like a huge theme of my life is greenery, is trees, is just like being able to walk outside and just like smell fresh air. I grew up in California, and wildfires were a huge sad part of that. I also drew, again, you can't super see it very well, but I drew like neighboring houses really close to each other, because something else that matters to me is living near my friends, having a support system. I drew a bunch of flowers. I drew sunshine. I drew a bunch of hearts. Again, like kind of silly, but this is just really important. Mariam says in the chat, my drawing is similar to yours. I drew trees, sun, ocean, happy people. I'm very curious to know what people drew. Again, there's no right or wrong answer, but to share a little secret with you, every time I do this exercise, there is a lot of overlap. And so I hope that you'll gain two things from this. Is first, understanding that not we all, but like many of us have a similar imagination for the type of world that we want to live in. And then the second thing that I hope that you get from this is, if there is a difference between your happy drawing and your current life or the world that we live in, we should explore what that is, because what matters to us should be within the world that we're building. Okay, so I know we're like halfway through the session. I barely said anything about myself, but I really wanted to be a chance for you to explore the types of things that you want to see. Shouldn't have put such a big picture of myself. You can already see me. But again, my name is Nivi Achanta. I am the CEO of a company called Soapbox Project. And as you have heard already, we help you turn intention into action. So our community is comprised of busy working professionals, generally in tech and business. A bunch of them are entrepreneurs. And really our goal is to find joy and courage as we work through the climate crisis together. So I live in Seattle. I really love what I do. I love building community. I'll tell you a little more about Soapbox at the end when we talk about applying climate imagination. But another really important thing that you should know about me, I had a lot of fun making this slide, is that I am angry. So that is one of my words. I know I don't sound angry right now, but I am really, really pissed off about the world that we have inherited. I always grew up knowing about this concept of global warming. And that is not the type of world that I want my kids to live in, or grandkids to live in, or future generations to have a world that is so fundamentally broken that, something that's like interesting is I don't think I'm passionate about climate change. Like, I am passionate about eating sourdough bread and occasionally baking sourdough bread. I am passionate about like hitting up my local karaoke bar. I don't want to be spending my time solving the climate crisis. I want to spend my time hanging out with my friends. Thankfully, I found a job where I can intersect hanging out with people and solving problems that matter. But the world that we have been given by older generations is not one that I'm satisfied about. And part of climate imagination for me is dreaming of a better world ahead. So there's this book called The Four Agreements. Maybe you've read it. It's quite popular. And that book kind of blew my mind because it was saying that we are currently and always living in someone's dream. So the society that we live in now was the dream of previous generations, whether or not they fully fleshed out what that dream would look like. And so the reason I think climate imagination is so important is we have to provide a better dream for people that come after us to keep our planet alive. And then the last thing that I'll say before I move on that was morbidly hilarious about the Four Agreements is it said that everything about society's dream that we're currently living in matches conventional descriptions of what hell looks like in major religions. And I thought that was very morbidly funny. So anyway, what do we do with all this anger and frustration is, for me, understand like this concept of climate imagination. So we grounded ourselves. We talked a little about climate imagination. We did an idea storming activity. I like it better than brainstorming. Now it's time to understand why climate imagination works. Because it's not just some like woo-woo thing this person with heart-shaped glasses is telling you. It is rooted in behavioral science and psychology. So there is a wonderful woman named Katie Patrick that I'll tell you more about her towards the end. But she basically researches climate imagination. And there's 4 key things that she thinks about. And I think every part of this is relevant if you're building a company, working on a climate solution, all of that. So the first thing is that goal-directed behavior works for humans. We like goals. It might feel good to just have no goals and just vibe. I love doing that. But we feel really good about completing a goal, which goes to the second little smiley face bullet. It gives us a dopamine hit. So when you have a checklist and you're making your checklist and you finally get to check that thing off your checklist, it literally boosts the dopamine in your brain, which is very exciting. Like going to the gym is supposed to make you happy. We'll see if that remains to be true. The third reason why climate imagination works is that it provides something called a cognitive alternative. So if you haven't experienced, if you've, for example, lived in the US your whole life or lived in a rural part of the world your whole life, you might not even know the joy of a world that is connected by 24-hour metro where you can just step outside your house and see your friends without making plans. I got the chance to study abroad in Lyon when I was in college and in France, and just like having that alternative of like, oh my God, I don't have to go find parking. This is amazing. So our brains need a cognitive alternative, which is basically a fancy way of saying if you can't imagine it, you can't do it. So, like, that is the biggest reason why I urge all of you to take these exercises back to where you work, back to what you're doing, and really, really get creative about the vision. Because, again, everything that exists now has only, like, all of the industrial revolution, like consumerism, a lot of that has just been a post World War II thing. So we need a new alternative. We need a cognitive alternative to anchor to. And then the last thing is there's actually a lot of research showing that positive images of the environment, so not the doom and gloom stuff, but positive climate images increase your attention instead of triggering your fight or flight responses. So that's why when you're reading bad news or you're talking about like all of the depressing stuff, it doesn't always work. So those are the concepts, really important to understand. And so the last thing that I'll say is now let's internalize the possibility of what we're talking about. This has happened, right? So I'm just pulling a bunch of quotes from books that I've really enjoyed. The first is, how do we build systems that truly make us free in cities? Sometimes it takes a radical shift in the urban imagination to point the way. This is in Siena, Italy. There's a vibrant town square. There's a third space where people can hang out without being consumers for free. It's great. That's one example. Another example, I'm not going to read the whole quote, but like patriarchy, white supremacy, they all came from someone else's imagination of scarcity and power. We can reimagine that. The last like real world example that I will tell you about is justice. Our vision is incomplete. We live in a world that's very focused on punishment, about a system that has already failed. So yeah, the bottom line is we just need a better vision. So the last thing that I'll tell you is how the last step in the climate imagination process is bringing this out of your imagination and into your life. Like, it's not enough to draw your happy picture. Now you have to think about how do you go out in the world and make that a reality. So what it looks like at Soapbox is we turn overwhelm into action, isolation into support, and anxiety into progress. I know those sound like very big claims, but I'm just going to tell you how the imagination piece works. We provide curated journeys based on what people want to learn about, based on what matters to you. We find you local friends and opportunities that you can connect with, because this is where the idea storming magic happens. I don't know what's going on in like Ghana or something. Like, I can't tell you beyond Seattle, beyond Washington State, beyond the US what's happening. We find actionable events so that you can practice the things that you're imagining. And our values are courage and joy. And joy is one that gets really overlooked. So we have all sorts of fireside chats for our members, because one of the whole thing about the cognitive alternative is you need to see what's possible. So this is just a small snippet, but we bring in experts that talk about electrification, that talk about transformative justice. We do action hour workshops. We even did a session about like how we talked to some Buddhist monks and teachers on how their philosophies can influence the world that we're building. So it's really about exposure to new perspectives. So our entire goal is to literally handhold you through a brighter imagination and a more clear path for action. So every single year, about 3 or 4 times a year, we launch cohorts where you're literally, everything that we just talked about on this presentation, you can do with a group of people on a specific topic and have the support that you need to overcome all of those like icky feelings that we talked about. So really the focus is about feeling better and doing better. So of course you're welcome to join, but you know, I just wanted to provide that as a resource. If you are interested, I'll actually go to this at the end because I know people might have questions, but I just want to end with this last quote from this book called Sacred Instructions. When we tap into our imagination, we are actively engaging the process of creation. Every person alive today is part of the dream of the ancestors. So this is about indigenous wisdom. It is about reframing the way that we see the world. It's just like a great way to frame. So I'm just going to end with some free resources. I saw Catherine in the chat mention donut economics. Oh, I guess I didn't include that. Oops. I was supposed to include it in my book section. That's a really great one. But this is just a list of resources. I would love to take questions. I know we're a few minutes over time, but if you want to join Soapbox, I would love to have you. There's a little QR code you can scan in that top page. If you are not looking for like a as handholdy of a community and you still want to practice a lot of the concepts that we learned today, I love these 3 communities: Create the Future, Earth, Buy Nothing, Climate Change Makers. They are all great action-oriented communities that are free. So I can put that slide up again at the end. But yeah, definitely let's stay in touch. The cohort that I mentioned that starts in January, and if you join from this event, there's $100 off of our cohort. It's totally up to you. Happy to send you free resources. I am here to support in whatever way I can, and I would love to hear what questions that you have.
Amazing. Nivi, thank you so much. This was the best ending to the summit I could have imagined. Thank you so much for doing this. Make sure you get in touch with Nivi. You check out the Soapbox project as well. And thank you so much. Have a great day. This brings me to actually closing this year's summit. It's hard to believe it's been 2 busy days. And it's been so great to see so many of you join both days, people popping in and out as well of the sessions. And we still owe you something, which is the announcement of our Pitch for Climate winners, which I'm going to do straight away now. So if we can just pull up my slide, I will go into that right now. So we had our Pitch for Climate competition yesterday with 8 startups in the final round competing to win the grand prize, which is lifetime access to the Impact Hustlers community, which includes bi-weekly mastermind groups, investor introductions, as well as $250,000 worth of discounts and access to software tools that help you actually build your startup. So really excited to announce 2 winners today. I'm not going to make it too long and go straight to it and announce the winner of round 1 first. We've rated you on quite a bunch of criteria around the problem validation, solution validation, the potential for impact, as well as the potential to really building a big business. And our winner for round 1 is Airmo. I'm really excited to announce that. Airmo is a new approach to locate, quantify, and track carbon dioxide and methane emissions using small satellite constellations. So amazing technology being developed at Airmo. If you want to get in touch with them as well, make sure you check out the website airmo.io. And the Airmo team, if you're here still, we will get in touch with you afterwards and share how you can claim your prize. And the second round, we had some amazing pitches, very strong pitches joining for the second round. So it was difficult to choose a winner, but our judges did choose, and we're very excited to announce that Metero has won the second round of the pitches. They are engineering biomass waste to end microplastic, bio-based, water degradable, and home compostable solution, basically. So it's really good to see that. We'll be in touch with you. If you want to check out those startups, go to their websites, metero.com for Metero. And this really leads me to wrapping up. This is the price that the founders are getting. I should mention that. So lifetime access to the Impact Hustlers community. And for everybody else on here, you can join the community as well. It's about $30 a month to join in there. You can go to impacthustlers.com/community, and there's a code CTFS22 that allows you to join for free for a month as well to check it out. All right, that leads me though to closing the summit and thanking our partners again, thanking especially 1014 for it. This summit wouldn't have happened without you. You've been an amazing partner for the second year round. And I'm sure we're going to do this again next year. We'll definitely keep everybody posted. So thank you so much, Katja. Thank you, Ben. It's been amazing working with you, and we can't wish for a better partner for making this happen. And also, again, thank you to our ecosystem partners, to Change Now. If you're around Europe, if you're up for going to Paris in May, you should sign up to Change Now and get a ticket. German Accelerator, thanks for the support. Venture for Climate Tech, an amazing program for early stage startup support. Impact Festival in Frankfurt, another great event, and Tech Open Air in Berlin. Thanks for all your support. We'll definitely build more partnerships like this. So if you'd like to be involved in some way, even if you run a community, if you run an event, if you feel like you could sponsor the summit, get in touch with me and we'll chat. I've put my email address on there. But even if you just want some extra support or some help with your startup, just send me an email, michael@impacthustlers.com, and I'm happy to help. Now, before we close, I'd like to ask Jordan on stage as well, if Jordan is around, and really express a massive thank you to Jordan. I know how much you've put into making this event happen. Last year, it was just myself. And it was absolutely madness making an event happen. And we had 300 amazing people join. But Jordan has put so much into this event and in these 2 days, way beyond anything that anybody can expect. So I really appreciate this and want to say a big thank you to you, Jordan. Hope to have you back for the next edition. Yeah, maybe say a few words. What was your kind of highlights of the 2 days now? You must be exhausted.
Yeah, a bit tired, but just a huge, obviously, thank you to our speakers for coming in and sharing their insight, firsthand experiences, and just expertise with our audience. A huge thank you, obviously, to our audience who turned up, engaging in the comments, sharing it, just resources nonstop, which is something that I haven't seen in a lot of the virtual events, just the audience constantly sharing with each other. So the community that we've built is absolutely amazing. And as someone who calls themselves the average Joe, because I'm not within the climate tech space, all of the content and everything that has been shared may make it seem that we're in a scary position, but with everything that we've heard today, there is just so much hope, especially for the average Joe, when you usually just hear the doom and gloom. But no, there's just so much hope, excitement. And I just hope that, the collaboration, the community just continues. So I guess follow Impact Hustlers. We'll be back next year, bigger and better. And then I have sent an email to everyone. So if you could share your feedback and just general thoughts, that would be much appreciated on our side. But thank you, everyone. And thank you, Maiko.
Perfect. Yeah, we would really appreciate your feedback. Please do fill that form. I know it can be always a little bit tedious, but we will really take it into consideration for next year. And other than that, you can always drop us emails as well. If you have praise, you can send it to jordan@impacthustlers.com. If you have criticism, you can send it to me, Maiko@impacthustlers.com. So hopefully, let's see which inbox fills up more. But we're always looking to improve as well and get the event to the next level next year. So thanks, everyone. Have a good day. Have a good evening and a good day. And see you next year. Bye-bye.
Thank you.